This hangout is live. We're live, Jay. You can get excited again.
All right, I'm excited now. Hangout's live.
All right, we're waiting now. Just
Hello, America.
A couple minutes to start the show. July 30th. Rick is somewhere unusual.
Grand Rapids. A Starbucks is unusual in Grand Rapids.
Oh, he's at a Starbucks?
Yeah, in Grand Rapids.
I'm at a Starbucks. Well, I'm at an undisclosed location in a bunker.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's the world's worst bunker, by the way, because they can see daylight.
It's a horrible bunker. They can see you. They can have
unless that's Gorilla Glass, you're in a lot of trouble.
Well, no, it's the needle in the haystack security system where people just don't know where I am, so they can't find me. So.
Oh.
Okay.
As it were.
Yeah. And you're incredibly, inconspicuous getup there.
Yeah. With a cell phone strapped to your head.
Got my laptop, my cell phone, my headset.
Oh my god.
I have my secret case that I have handcuffed to my wrist.
You totally look like a secret agent. This is like
so much, yeah.
weird, actually.
Yeah, like Johnny Depp wearing the CIA shirt in Once Upon a Time in Mexico. That's how hidden I am.
I want to see some of those funky Matrix moves. Slow-mo. 90 seconds.
90 seconds!
All right.
Places!
Hang on, let me stop traffic across the street here so I have more peace. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, let's just do that.
Yeah, I'll just do that.
All right. Make sure they all stop for the whole hour and just watch.
Is anybody looking at you, like, sort of in that outfit and the sunglasses and the thing and sort of...
No, she is not.
Oh, you're outside? Oh, I thought you were inside. Wow. Oh, it really is beautiful out there. Look at that. I thought you were inside and that was the window to the outside. Okay.
Oh, no, I didn't. He's outside. Yeah. That's a reflection.
That's a hell of a reflection.
That's why I was saying like it's not a very good bunker because he's out in plain sight.
Yeah, that really is a terrible bunker. I'm not an expert on bunkers.
Oh, I thought you were.
No, but my sense is that at some part they're supposed to be fortified.
Yeah,
to some extent.
And hidden from the outside world.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it might be the world's worst bunker, but it's still a bunker.
Okay,
I didn't say it was the world's worst. I said it was. Did I say it was the world's worst?
Yes, you did say it was the world's worst.
Well, I can't qualify that because I'm not an authority on bunkers. But it's not a great bunker. That I can tell you.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a great bunker. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good morning and welcome to the show for July 30th. I'm Heather Vale here with my co-hosts Jay Amernick and Rick Raditz. Jay's a strategic planner who helps his clients create and implement plans, goals, tactics, and benchmarks, and he's the bridge in Nevada for Israeli companies who want to expand their business into the U.S. Rick Raditz is a serial entrepreneur and an internet marketer who has a degree in philosophy. His political development and the backbone of the show is called The Solution, which is to cap and prioritize. I'm Heather Vale, known as The Unwrapper. I'm a journalist in all media, TV, radio, print, and online. And together we make your cast for the political fix. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, how are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, Rick is in an interesting location once again. This time, though, he is outside a Starbucks, and it actually looks pretty nice there. Rick, what's going on?
Yeah. I'm on vacation in Grand Rapids, Michigan. My mother-in-law's cabin is actually about an hour and a half northwest of here, near Lake Michigan. So just came out here to get the Starbucks and pick up a friend at the airport. So we're doing the show on location, as it were.
Yeah, a radio remote. That's great.
Yeah.
And of course, Jay and I are on location in fabulous Las Vegas.
Yes.
Different locations, however, we're both here. So how's it going for you, Jay?
It's going good. I got a week that I thought was going to be sort of normal, and that's turned into a very busy week, which is good.
Yeah, that always seems to be the way it goes.
Yeah. And you?
Cool. Well, pretty much the same. I've been working like crazy, shooting videos, and yeah, I mean, working every day. So it's been fun, though. Yeah. Good times. Good times.
Yes.
Vegas videos. So, Rick, why don't you start off by letting the people know exactly what the solution is and what it means to cap and prioritize?
Okay, well, as you know, our country is divided politically. We've got the left, we've got the right, we've got the center, and no one knows how to bring all these sides together to fix our government. Everyone agrees the government's screwed up, maybe in different ways, but no one knows how to bring us all together and really make a giant leap forward in terms of how we solve the world's problems and our problems. And that's what the solution's all about. The solution is called cap and prioritize. And like it sounds, it's a two-step solution. Step one is to cap the heck out of government, just like the political right would love. And normally that would make the political left a little nervous, even moderates a little nervous, but that's where step two comes in. Step two is to take the money that's left, trillions of dollars, and actually prioritize it. Okay, now there's ways of doing that. And the benefit of prioritizing, of actually publishing a prioritized budget, is that the transparency of it forces the government to help the people who need help most and help them in ways that help them the most. And that is the aggressive pursuit of social justice. But it's happening within libertarian and conservative limits. So cap and prioritize is the limits that the right wants. It's the pursuit of social justice or fairness or equal opportunity that the left wants. And it's the gentle transition to a fiscal conservative, socially progressive government that the moderates want. So it is the solution.
Shouldn't it be prioritized and cap? Don't we have to prioritize first before we can cap?
No, it turns out you don't have the pressure to prioritize unless you have the cap first. Because, I mean, if there's no cap, you start arguing about what else to spend money on, and you're not actually prioritizing. You got to have the cap first, and then you'll be forced to prioritize whatever's left. And the key is to not cut spending, but make sure that it grows a little bit slower than our economy. So our economy can catch up, and we can gradually get back into a sustainable level of government. And then all along, we're prioritizing, reprioritizing under that kind of pressure so that we make sure that we help the people who need help most.
Okay. So how long will it take to catch up if we've already got a deficit and you're saying that it should just be one step behind the economy?
Well, catching up means that we're spending less than we're taking in, okay? And I won't go into the economics of it, but we're basically taking in as much as we can out of our economy. It's been fairly constant. We've kind of hit a ceiling the last 50 years or so, and we can't take much more out without hurting our economy. So we have to start spending a little bit less. Now, luckily, our economy is growing. Even in these hard times, it's still growing. And so if we just shave it like a % or two off the growth of government spending, our economy will eventually catch up. It really is that simple.
Okay, but when you say eventually, how long are we talking?
Well, it depends how aggressive we can be on that cap and how good our economy grows. And there are indications that if a government is properly capped, our economy will grow faster. So I'm going to guess it's going to take between 8 and 20 years to be realistic.
Okay. All right, so let's have the top story then. This one is actually by request of Rick because this is going to fit into exactly what he's talking about, and we're going to find out how in a few minutes. So, top story out of Washington this week. Paul Ryan proposed a new plan last week to merge up to 11 anti-poverty programs into a single grant program. He said this would allow more flexibility to help lift people out of poverty. Programs that would be merged include food stamps, cash welfare, housing subsidies, and heating aid for the poor, among others. The Wisconsin Republican and 2012 vice presidential nominee is a respected voice within his party. His new Opportunity Grant Plan, as he calls it, would impose work or job training requirements on aid recipients and require states that choose to participate to set up at least 2 service providers. This is a move that he says would encourage partnerships with locally based nonprofits and community groups that may better know the needs of their own communities. Ryan, who has traveled the country in the past year visiting with the poor and with those who help them, said the current anti-poverty programs are fragmented and formulaic, and that his new grant program would allow greater collaboration within communities to help lift people out of poverty. Third-party monitors would judge the effectiveness of the programs and providers as they took place. Now, Democrats have blasted this idea. They had a conference call with reporters, and they noted that Ryan released the plan the day before a vote in the GOP-controlled House that would cut back the child tax credit. Participation by states would be voluntary, and Ryan said he sees the proposal as an experimental pilot program, and it wouldn't be expanded until the initial results are in and they could see how it's working. Ryan largely endorses a plan by President Barack Obama to increase tax credits for the working poor by doubling the credit available to childless workers and lowering the eligibility age from 25 to 21. He proposes to pay for this by cutting what he calls corporate welfare and ineffective programs. He also endorsed bipartisan efforts to give judges more discretion in handing down prison sentences to non-violent offenders. So let's hear what Jay has to say first.
This is going to tie right into my my inside perspective today. But it's,
well, imagine that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I love when that happens.
It's because I actually didn't think this was going to be the top story because I thought we decided it was going to be something else. But so anyway, a couple things. This shows that with all the name calling, Paul Ryan is not the anti-poor monster that he was portrayed as. He's actually and any piece of legislation he comes out with is going to certainly be interesting and thoughtful. He is definitely he's a policy wonk, and he really knows this stuff. There may be a difference in philosophy between him and the Democrats, but so for them to come out and blast it, in my mind, is a little bit foolish because it hasn't been tooled with yet. So instead of leaving the door open for negotiation, they've already put him on the defensive. That's but again, I think it's an interesting idea, and it actually sort of falls into the cap and prioritize concept because it's gonna bring everything together, and then they're gonna shave off the crapola that doesn't work, and keep the stuff that does, and have something that's cohesive, that's easy to follow, that's not this fragmented thing which can so easily happen in Washington.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that he's a Republican. The Democrats are blasting his idea, but he's supporting Obama's plan. So
right. Which again has gone back to my point several times that what you do, there's a great deal of cooperation in Washington D.C., but that doesn't make the news because it's not interesting. What you want to see is the arguments, everything like that. There was actually just a bill passed. I'll talk about it in my inside perspective. But yeah, okay. There's a great deal of cooperation, but what the media likes to report on are the wedge issues, the things like that get everybody fired up. Because all the other stuff, quite frankly, if you watch C-SPAN, is boring as all get out. They could bottle it and sell it as nerve gas. So this it's an opportunity for them to work together to solve a problem. And Paul Ryan's plan is a jumping off point, and there'll be arguments and bargaining and they'll work out what needs to be done. Something that they can all agree on.
Yeah. Okay. Rick, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think this is a first step towards cap and prioritize. It's a very small scale proposal, and yet in some ways it's very transformative proposal. It's it's trying to get to the idea that results have to start mattering. And what Paul Ryan is missing is it's not enough to do the block grant and say, good luck. You have to do the block grant and then also say prioritize. Okay. Now, he set up some features in this proposal that encourage results to be evaluated and taken into account, and so that's why I call it a first step. But I think it's a very important validation, I guess, that the cap and prioritize concept is real. I mean, it is politically viable to at least discuss it. Paul Ryan is not some backbencher in Congress. He is one of the leadership on the Republican side. So for him to come out with a cap and prioritize compatible idea, in spirit, it's the same concept, is very important towards the cap and prioritize movement. So I applaud this step. I'll be reaching out to Paul Ryan's legislative assistants who are in charge of this proposal and see if I can't help them with the language, with some of the details that they may not have thought about. We can merge these two ideas together and see what comes out of it. But I'm very happy to see what Paul Ryan's doing here, even if it doesn't fly. There's always a first step, a first trial balloon, and the success of that doesn't really matter. The fact that it's being discussed is progress.
Okay, so let's get him on the show to discuss this next week.
There you go. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So, you talk about the importance of discussing it, and that's actually why we're here doing what we do, is discussing these ideas and how they could possibly be implemented and who can implement them. Because obviously it's one thing to talk about it, and that's just what people do who are advocates and lobbyists. They talk about something, but to actually make the change, it's the people that have access to these laws and to government processes that have to be the ones to implement it. So,
right, I think it's interesting that it came out first here on the political right, and I think that's because the cap is an easier message for the political right to deliver to their base. Who's against prioritizing? Prioritizing might be hard, but no one's against it. So,
right.
The ironic future that I predict is that it's not going to be the left that discovers the real way to achieve social justice. It's going to be the right, in partnership with elements of the left, that get this done. It's going to be a big political fight, but I think the cap, you talk about wedge issues, Jay, and cap and prioritize is a wedge issue. The political right can unite behind the idea of capping and prioritizing, because they're already for the cap in spirit, at least, and the prioritizing helps soften the message of the cap and the effect of the cap without softening the cap. So the cap and prioritize can unite the right in time after the debate happens, but the left, I think, unfortunately, is going to be a little divided, because some will think it's a trick, some will not be sure, and some will love it. And so with the right united and the left divided, the good news is that it happens. And the really good news is that in time, when it actually works, then we can unite finally as a country. And it might take a generation or two, because that's how long these kinds of deep-seated divides take to heal. But I'm an optimist in that front.
Okay, cool. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have the inside perspective with Jay Emmernick and see how this all ties in. So we'll be back in a few minutes on The Political Fix. Cool.
Thank you, Doug.
Alrighty. We're free speaking.
Yes. Hey, do we have analytics on the who's listening to the show? Not the Hangout per se, but the show.
Yeah, Doug, don't we have that? Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. What?
Okay, cool. All right, welcome back to the Political Fix. Oh, okay. Yes,
False start.
I'm ready.
Well, there's traditionally a 5, 4, 3,
Okay.
2, 1.
Yeah, I forgot.
Heather is ready.
Welcome back to the Political Fix. I'm Heather Vale here with Jay Emmernick and Rick Raditz. And before the break, we were talking about Paul Ryan's new proposed plan to help lift people out of poverty. And just curious, Rick, I mean, you were talking about how this fits in with the cap and prioritize model that you call the solution. Have you seen anything else recently come out of government bureaucrats that fits in with what you would call a step in the right direction?
Well, let's see. Back when we were having the big fight over the debt ceiling, a couple one senator proposals that had 5 different big blocks before any one program is turned off when government was threatened to be out of money for a short time. And so the idea of prioritizing is not new. It's what every household has to do. It's what every business has to do. The only reason the government doesn't have to do it is because politically it's hard and they can get away with it, and have the ability to print money and raise taxes. And so it's time for we the people to start making our government be as responsible fiscally as we have to be and as businesses have to be. Even states have to be more fiscally responsible than the federal government. And the states that are not, Illinois and California, for example, they're headed for a big crash sometime, and they're hoping for a bailout, frankly. And at some point, those bailouts are going to have to come with a cost. And hopefully that cost will be that they have to cap and prioritize, in exchange for whatever bailout they get. So
Okay.
there's evidence of good things and bad things in our recent political history.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So we've got a Google Hangout going on. If anyone's listening and they want to see the behind-the-scenes video, you can go to politicalfixradio.com. And I was just noticing as Rick was talking that people are wandering by. I see their reflections in the glass behind him at Starbucks, and it looks like they're kind of giving some quizzical looks.
Are they? Okay.
Like, here's this guy with
Welcome to
a headset
WKXR Radio. Yes.
He's got
Starbucks.
an iPhone strapped to his head, and here he is just spouting off this political speech into his phone. Like, people don't see this every day. This is not something you normally see at Starbucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right, so every week we have a segment that we call Inside Perspective with Jay Emmernick, because Jay has worked in Washington, in the government. He has an inside perspective on how things work behind the scenes, and today he's going to share with us what his thoughts are for this week, which ties in with our top story. So, Jay, go ahead with the inside perspective.
Yes, thank you, Heather. This is another one of those ones where the small p politic invades and distorts the capital P politic. And again, I'll use Congressman Ryan's plan. he was portrayed as this guy. They had him a lookalike pushing an old woman off a cliff and during the election and all this nonsense, like he didn't care about old people, which is absolutely ludicrous. Both sides demonize the other with name calling and pejoratives to the point where they completely dehumanize them, and the other side always believes it. The names that people call President Obama, the names that people were calling Mitt Romney, it's absolutely outrageous. But the real problem with it is that it distorts the work that needs to get done in Washington, because it becomes a distraction, and it goes back to a larger problem, which is that the second a politician gets elected, he or she has to start worrying about their next election cycle, especially in the House of Representatives, where it's every 2 years. So it's like a constant thing where they're literally having to change the tire while going 65 miles an hour, and I think that is a bad setup. I don't know exactly how you fix it, but that is my inside perspective, that the name calling needs to stop. It is not helpful, and all it does is rile up the vox populi.
Right, but isn't that the point? Isn't that why they do it?
Yes, but what I'm saying is it's not helpful. It's destructive, and it's become very bad for it. It's not like they, how do I put this? It's like now it's like going to a football game where the audience is getting into fights with each other, as opposed to like a boxing match where you're rooting for one guy or the other, and they're beating the crap out of each other, and they're talking all kinds of trash to each other. This is now bled over into the population where they've so demonized the other side, both sides have, that when somebody comes to you and says, "Hi, I'm from the other side," you look at them with the same venom and vitriol that you do with that political figure that you despise so much, because you believe that, for instance, Paul Ryan hates old people and wants to murder all the poor, or that Barack Obama is a communist and whatever else they throw at him. It's like there's no more civil discourse. It's gone right to like mob rule and rioting and lynch mobs.
Okay, Rick, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's tradition on this show for me to completely disagree with Jay, and I won't disappoint. This is another one of those shows. I completely disagree with Jay. I think the fact that we are so divided is the appropriate path, because it's appropriate for people to be really for limited government, because we really need to limit government. And it's appropriate for people to be really for social justice and fairness, equal opportunity, because there's a lot of work to be done in that area. And so the fact that these two sides are aggressively, fighting it out, duking it out in the public space, and it's not the right's job to make the left look good. It's not the left's job to make the right look good. They're both supposed to attack the other side, keep them on their toes, and promote their own side. And so if Paul Ryan cannot deliver a message of how he cares about the poor people, etc., then the left will win that fight with those kind of wheelchair over the cliff ads. Paul Ryan has to, this is going to force Paul Ryan and his camp to add the social justice message, and that's what he's doing. So this is actually a part of a healthy, competitive democracy that does make progress over time, and it's messy and it's ugly and there's steps backwards, but it is progress. It's absolutely appropriate, and I'm all for it.
Okay. Well, I sort of agree with you. Let me put like a slightly finer point on it to make sure you guys see if I can bring you back a little bit.
Okay.
I agree with the passion. My issue is when they've completely dehumanized the other person, and it gets to the point where I see it on Facebook all the time. Friends of mine say, "Well, if so and so agrees with so and so, I'm defriending you." I mean, what that's insane. We're not going to have a discussion about it. It goes this because that divide leaves no room for, as the Brits call it, the argy-bargy, the argument and the bargaining. It turns into, we're right, you're wrong, and there's no room for any of that when you've dehumanized them to that point. That's my worry, is that we may have gone too far. I like the passion, and I know that, and the problem is that behind closed doors, it's a different story in Washington. But they're letting the people turn. There's going to be like that's going to be like the next civil war in this country. It's going to be conservatives versus liberals.
It might be. It might come to that, but I don't think so, because both sides have a piece of the puzzle. In the case of the Civil War and slavery, one side was right and the other side was wrong. I mean, we can say that pretty objectively. If you hold freedom.
However, there's people listening who would not agree with that.
Well, okay, right, but there was no room for argument. There was no room for argument or bargaining, and what ended up happening was there was a civil war in this country because of that.
Yeah.
You are correct that one side was right and one side was wrong. I can't imagine there's any arguing that.
Yeah, but
somebody's pro-slavery.
In our case, both sides have a piece of the puzzle, so it's absolutely appropriate for them to be passionate about it. And given our current setup, there's no way for them to go forward without using whatever works best. Whatever works, it's going to happen. So, if that means demonizing the opponent, dehumanizing them, that's the system. It's up to Paul Ryan to humanize himself. It's up for Paul Ryan to say, look, thanks to Camp and Prioritize, yeah, we're going to be pushing grandmas off the cliff, but only the rich grandmas, because rich grandmas have parachutes. Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now here's the thing.
And he'll get a little giggle, and he'll be human again.
Yes. Yeah. Of course. But here's the problem with that, is that usually, for Paul Ryan, for instance, to humanize himself on those issues, it is so much more complicated to explain to people than the Democrats saying Paul Ryan wants to cut this program, this program, and this program, right? That's something tangible we can wrap our head around. When he comes back and says what he wants to do, we are in it is wonky, it's complicated, it is murky, and then all of a sudden it's like, I don't understand what he just said, so I'm going with the guy who said, we're
going to help people. Yeah. I totally agree that with your lament on that point. However, there's no way to change that fact. And if you look back in human history over 10,000 years, it's always been that way, where if you're in a jungle law state or a kingdom and you want to have democracy and capitalism, you got to win the power battle before you can end the power battle. And so you have to build your own army and go attack and kill the king or the dictator before you can have the power to set up your own government. And then good luck, because there's still 1,000 other enemies trying to tear you down. So
that's right.
And that's why history takes so long to play out. So yeah, the Camp and Prioritize method is harder to deliver. It will take longer to get out, but once it does, it wins. And so that's how history progresses. I think all you're doing is describing just how hard of a fight we have. But I think we're on the right side. I think you agree with that. And,
yes, absolutely.
But I guess where you and I disagree on this point is, I don't see anything wrong with the way it's working right now, because how can it work any other way? We have to win this power struggle to end the power struggle.
Well, yeah. But the sides are so divided. There's not going to be any. Well, there's not going to be any coming together.
See, if the final solution pursues both freedom and social justice, I'm going to argue that it's absolutely appropriate for us to be this divided. In fact, we may have to be even more divided. You know how things have to get really bad before they finally change for real?
Yeah, and I think they're as bad as it can be.
I think we're on that path. Things have to get really, really bad. We have to get really angry at each other, and then finally we'll be willing to do the fundamental change we have to achieve both goals.
Okay, now just a point, guys. You're both talking about in the Civil War, one side was right and one side was wrong. And Jay said you don't think anybody would be against or would be for slavery these days. However, here is an article published April 4th of this year on the Business Insider, businessinsider.com. And it starts out, decades after the era when the Ku Klux Klan lynched African Americans, the hate group is still fighting for white power. There are active chapters in 41 U.S. states with between 5,000 and 8,000 active members, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. Members are split among local organizations like the Fraternal White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan in Tennessee and a few national organizations like the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. So clearly, even when we're talking about something that extreme, that most of us sit here and shake our heads and say, how could anyone possibly be behind that? The fact is there are still people in this country who are for slavery and worse. So you can never tell.
Well, two thoughts on that real quick. One is it's a very, very small number, thank goodness. And number two, I wonder if they're still for slavery. I have no idea. I haven't talked to these people. But I suspect that today's Ku Klux Klan is not as extreme as our father Klan, I suspect, is moderating. And even if you don't think so?
Shane's going to disagree.
Yeah, no.
I don't know.
They will to the extent. No, they will to the extent that it's good for how do I put this, for public opinion. It's like the leader of Hamas going on Charlie Rose saying they're a humanitarian organization. It's nonsense. So I don't buy that they're moderating.
Yeah, but look, the Ku Klux Klan movement has failed so spectacularly that we currently have a half-black president who looks fully black, and it's just, we aren't complaining about his race, we're complaining about his policies. So we've made tremendous progress, and they basically have no impact at all. None. Zero.
No, that I agree. I agree with, but that doesn't mean they're not on the fringes planning something in the basement.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we're going to take another break, and when we get back, if you want to join the conversation, you can give us a call at 1-888-627-6008. That's 888-627-6008. We'll be right back on The Political Fix. Okay.
All right.
This is us speaking free will.
Free speech.
Woo!
Let's see. So we got racism in there, slavery. What else can we talk about?
I think you have to be very careful not referring to it as the solution, not the final solution.
Well, yeah. You're the only one that makes that correlation. You're like...
No. No, that's,
Okay.
That's a big one. They're already part of the problem. They're supplying Hamas. They're supplying Hamas with some of the rockets they're using. Because they have a nuclear weapon. Because
they have a nuclear weapon, and they have no strategic assets that we care about, and for all the saber rattling that do, they aren't actually threatening the global peace. They're just trying to get some money for their own internal domestic needs. So yeah, and that much money is small potatoes these days. So, the world's not perfect. but it is trending positive, long-term trend. So we can be long-term optimists even if we're short-term realists.
We're ready. Welcome back to The Political Fix. I'm Heather Vale, here with my co-hosts Jay Emernick and Rick Raditz. Now, if you want to join in the conversation, ask a question, make a statement, give us a call at 1-888-627-6008. That's 888-627-6008. Now, before the break, we were talking about Jay's inside perspective, and we actually talked about a bunch of things, including, Rick, give us a rundown.
We ended up on slavery somehow, and the Ku Klux Klan, and I think everything in between. So I don't know what else to talk about. We're done.
Are we done? Okay. No, seriously. Here's the point, though. There are extreme opinions, and there are people that will act in extreme ways, and there are people who have extreme beliefs. So no matter what we come up with and say, no, nobody would believe this, nobody would be for this, there are actually people, however large a number or small a number it happens to be, but there are people who are passionate in their own ways about pretty much everything. Now, obviously you guys made some good points that the KKK really does not have a hold on society anymore the way that they used to, and even though they are, we've got some debate going whether or not they've moderated their views and their stance and their actions. The fact is they're not making an impact on society as a whole. So that's one of those things. Rick's always talking about eventually things change, and that's one of those things that eventually did change.
So to bring this back to the cap and prioritize idea, now there's nobody really that believes in cap and prioritize as the solution. But back in the day, you would never have believed that a black person could be president. It just wouldn't have been possible. So that speaks to how ideas can change societies over time. It's not easy. It's not a straight line. It's very difficult, not guaranteed, but it does happen. And since the truth ends up winning, reality ends up winning long term, always. And since camp and prioritize ties into a very fundamental truth that if ideas compete, the best ideas win. Okay, if the competition is transparent enough. So we're harnessing the power of evolution, the power of social change here, to make the next step in social change, cap and prioritize, where spending ideas have to compete in a transparent, prioritized marketplace. That's an idea that's tied to fundamental truth, and so it will win eventually. And so those of us who are for it now, we are, we get to claim kind of founding father status, if you will, for this idea. And the first 1,000 people who come out in favor of it are going to be, the people that get to live the rest of their lives knowing that they helped change the world in a big way. This is big stuff.
Yeah. Kumbaya.
Yeah.
Jay, what do you think?
Yeah, and again, I agree with Rick that these things take these things take time, because it's not a new idea, but it is. And again, it's going to go back to my inside perspective. It's a somewhat radical idea in so much as it's going to require compromise. Who would have thought that moderation was the radical, in this country? But oftentimes something that seems like lunatic, like way out there and radical is puzzles sort of conventional minds, but ultimately people come to see and say, hey, this is actually going to make sense. And again, sort of to agree with Rick too, that it does have to get very bad before it has to hit rock bottom, obviously before the right wakes up and says, okay, I guess we do have to prioritize, prioritize, and then the left says we have to actually cap, because it makes no sense.
Okay, but how do you figure the moderates are the ones being extreme? And by definition, they're not.
Because I'll tell you why. Because if I talk to a liberal friend of mine and I say, Paul Ryan doesn't want to kill people, that is a radical point of view as far as they're concerned. That is like telling them that water is not wet. Okay, and if I tell them that my conservative friends that Barack Obama is not a communist, bent on the destruction of America, to them that is like saying that rocks aren't hard. It's like that's
people at each extreme, at the left and the right, who are reacting.
But that's where we are, though.
The moderate, the voice of reason is you.
The voice of reason is now. It seems to be not the extreme, but seems to be the radical. Seems to be like, what are you talking about?
Isn't it more likely that a conversation between an extreme left-wing person and an extreme right-wing person is going to end up with some head bashing?
No, because they're not even going to. Because they're not even going to have a conversation. It's going to be name calling back and forth, and then they're done. Because the moderate's actually having a conversation that makes the moderate radical. That's radical in this day and age. Yes.
Okay. Alrighty then. Not sure that makes sense, but okay.
I didn't say it made sense, but it's
It is what it is.
It is what it is. It's the way of the world right now.
Okay.
Well, yeah. If the establishment, there's an established left, established right. As the two establishments get more and more extreme, more and more pure in a sense, that means that the moderates, in a way, become the radicals. They become the agents of change. And now, here's the hard thing: moderates have no history of making fundamental change. In the Civil War, if I remember my history right, it was the extremes on both sides that made the thing happen, and the moderates were forced to finally make a decision between two extremes. And that's the way it usually works, is that the extremes are driving the agenda. In this case, we have a very unique situation where both sides have literally half the answer. The right is correct, we need to cap the heck out of government. The left is correct that we have to prioritize the people who need help most. And so it's going to be the moderates that become the peacemakers, the negotiators. And to the left and right, it'll seem like compromise. But to the moderates, the weird thing is they're going to have to find their voice. They're going to have to become extreme relative to what they were before in order to make this happen. They're going to have to say, look, I'm not for a strong cap. I'm not for the strong, aggressive pursuit of social justice. But you put the two ideas together, and I'm for that. Because by being really fiscally conservative and really socially progressive at the same time, then there's a sense of balance there. And so moderates have to step up. And it's not clear that they can do that. So who knows how this revolution happens? My gut feeling is that it'll actually be 5% of every group that figures it out for their own reasons, and they bring the rest of their group on board, and it's just going to be one big argument.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, right now it's difficult because moderates get quite maligned. In elected officials that are moderates. I think of Senator Joe Lieberman was basically put out to pasture by the Dems because he moderated too much. Senator Evan Bayh, also like a classic moderate, could not get any foothold when he tried to run for president. So they get maligned by their own party.
Yeah, the structure as a whole is bipolar. It's schizophrenic. We're hearing voices telling us to go in different directions, and we don't know which voices are real. So schizophrenia is probably the best diagnosis of our society. But if we change the structure of government, if we cap and prioritize, that can be healed. So we have hope.
Okay. So let's take a break now. When we come back, we're going to have our outside perspective for the show, which we affectionately call Rick's Rant. So that's coming right back up when we come back on The Political Fix. Okay, cool. It's really hot in here. Vegas, baby. Okay. I think he's frozen on the Hangout, too.
Yeah, it might be his internet connection then.
Yeah, because he dropped off once before as well, and then came back.
Well, I like this outdoor thing. I might do this again just for fun.
Have
a little sign behind me. We can interview guests on the street.
Yeah. Yeah, put up a banner that says politicalfixradio.com.
We got the fix. We got the fix.
All right, Jay. Yeah, okay, there you're on the Hangout. Okay. We're blaming your internet connection. Okay. Okay. We're ready. Welcome back to The Political Fix. I'm Heather Vale, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Jay Amernick and Rick Raditz. Before the break, we were discussing a whole bunch of stuff that I'm not going to recap now, because you know what? This is the time that we look forward to every week. This is when Rick gets his chance to be as extreme as he wants to be the radical. And we call that Rick's Rant. So go ahead, Rick, give us your rant for this week.
Okay. Today I want to rant about people who think the answer is compromise, which Jay just mentioned 2 minutes ago. And that's why I'm ranting about this this week. The answer is not compromise. The answer is to be more precise than ever before. And that kind of precision can seem extreme. It can seem like a compromise, but it's neither. It is about being precise. Okay, and it is precise to say that individuals make decisions, and collectives, nations make decisions, and politicians make decisions, and foreign nations make decisions, and we as a species make decisions. And if we don't properly incentivize all 5 of these decision makers, we're going to have problems. And it is precise to say that capitalism does a good job incentivizing individuals, and democracy does a good job incentivizing politicians, and diplomacy and defense do a good job incentivizing foreign nations. Not perfect, but a good job. And so we need to start properly incentivizing our collective, we the people. And that merges in with the political in a sense, but it's something different. Democracy is about making sure authoritarian dictators don't have control. That's all democracy is about. It's not about making wise decisions. Democracy is about making politicians pander to us instead of us pandering to them. And pandering isn't always wise. It's that simple. And so if we want our politicians to make wise decisions, we need a structure of government that's very precise, that has the right incentives, and make sure that the good ideas win and the bad ideas lose over time. That's what cap and prioritize is all about. So I'm going to rant against everyone who's the answer is compromise, and rant against anyone who thinks the answer is extreme. It's about precision. Precision is neither extreme nor compromise. That's it.
Okay. Well, you're talking about the good ideas and the bad ideas, the right ideas and the wrong ideas, but of course everyone thinks that their ideas are right. Everyone thinks that their ideas are good. So who are you to come along and say, no, this is a bad idea, this is a good idea?
No, see, it's not me who's saying what a good idea or a bad idea is.
Yes, it is.
No, no. Like in capitalism. In capitalism, who says the iPad is a good idea?
The people that buy the iPad.
The marketplace.
The marketplace. But an idea that once was a good idea in 2011 becomes a bad idea in 2015 because of the 2015 version of the iPad isn't a whole lot better than the 2011 version of the iPad. Apple will lose and somebody else will win. So what's a good idea and a bad idea depends greatly on what's happening on the ground. What's the current situation of things? And with cap and prioritize, we have the same dynamic working. No one person picks what the prioritizing is. It's a negotiation. It's a fight. Of course, it has to be. Okay, we're never going to agree on priorities, but we can agree to prioritize. And by prioritizing, the transparency will force the ideas that help people to win over the ideas that help, just certain special favored groups. And the ideas that actually deliver results will win over ideas that waste money. And so over time, through competition, transparent competition, the marketplace, the priority marketplace, will, thanks to cap and prioritize, help the best ideas win. And what those ideas are, I don't know. The marketplace will figure it out.
But by definition, prioritizing means that you're only helping certain groups of people. And you just said it's about helping people, not certain sets of people. But that can't happen if we're prioritizing.
Okay, it's about helping the people who need help most, not the people who have the most power.
Okay.
Right now, our system of government rewards people who have power greatly. Okay, and both sides complain about this. But what do you do about it? Well, the answer we now know is cap and prioritize. And we need more people to know about this. And under cap and prioritize, it doesn't matter how powerful you are, you can't put your special project ahead of helping the homeless. Because in a prioritized budget, that doesn't work. In an unprioritized budget, you can get away with it. You can say, oh, we're going to spend some money over here because it's a good idea, quote unquote. In a prioritized budget, such an idea would be so low in priority it wouldn't make the cut. It just wouldn't make the cut. So cap and prioritize is the way to, without picking favorites, make sure the best ideas win. Ideas that help people most and help people best.
Right. Well, there's another part of it that's going to make it very complicated, which is when we look at efficacy, what actually works. It's great to say, we want to feed all the homeless. That's great. What's the most effective way to do that? We've tried to figure out the best way to educate our children, and all we do is throw more money at it, and we haven't moved the needle since the inception of the Department of Education. So I don't say
right now results don't matter because our political system doesn't care about results; it cares about power. Under a cap and prioritized budget, results will start to matter, and we'll start to have a feedback loop. And at any point in time, we'll be wrong, but we'll be trending towards being right. And so I'm looking at the trend here, not any one decision.
Right. That's going to be the most difficult thing to change is that mentality in Washington, because right now a government agency is it's use it or lose it. Right. So when they do their budget next year, it doesn't matter whether they budgeted last year to spend $10,000 on office supplies. If they spent $5,000, they're gonna go out and have a shopping spree and buy a bunch of crap they don't need, and then they're going to ask for $15,000 next year. That's the problem.
And I totally agree with you. In my rant, I made a kind of a comparison between cap and prioritize and capitalism, democracy, and national defense / diplomacy. And each of these ideas is very simple in concept, but very complex to implement. And that's actually a sign that cap and prioritize is the right idea. Of course the solution should be simple. Of course the solution is going to be hard. It's one of those things that are simple, not easy. And And so I completely agree with you that, yeah, the actual changing of the mindsets, thinking is even possible. These are some of the biggest challenges we have, but that's the fight we have to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I agree.
Wow.
But
You guys agree on something.
We won't.
Very rarely is there a
pick Jay apart on the details here. That's all.
Okay, so you agree on the forest, but you don't necessarily agree on the trees.
Yeah, we both agree. I think on capital prioritize as a common sense idea. I'm just a purist when it comes to things like the words extremism and compromise. I just want that out of the issue completely and focus on precision.
Well, I think you're splitting hairs a little bit. I think compromise and precision are sort of go hand in hand.
You know what? I'm going to agree with Jay.
Holy moly! Oh my God!
Absolutely. I think you're splitting hairs on the semantics there, Rick, because ultimately, I mean, we've talked about this before. I also believe that there is some amount of compromise involved. However, this is a debate that we're going to have to continue next week because we're out of time for this week. We're going to wrap up the show. If you're listening and you want to see the behind-the-scenes video and you want to see Rick sitting outside Starbucks with people looking at him physically as they walk by, go ahead and check us out at politicalfixradio.com. Have a great week, and we'll be back with you next week for another episode of The Political Fix.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay, thanks. Okay, you too. Bye.
Thank you. I just got free cookies.
How did you get free cookies?
You got free cookies for sitting outside through Starbucks?
Yeah, someone got it with their Happy Meal at Moe's Southwest Grill, and they didn't want the kids to have it, so they gave it to me.
Oh, I thought Starbucks gave it to you for sitting out there and attracting so much attention.
No, there's a Starbucks over here and Moe's Grill over there.
Okay.
Are they Southwest cookies? Like
I don't know. They seem.
It's not really a Southwest dessert.
Yeah, I can't explain it. It's a compromise.
Exactly.
Compromise.
It's not very nice either.
Yeah.
It's not.
If it was a cinnamon cookie, I would say that's the compromise. That's sort of.
But it is good.
We can all agree on that. There's nothing wrong with a cookie.
So next Wednesday I'll be someplace. I'm not sure where. Because I think I'm traveling back on that day.
All over the place. Okay.
Yeah, but I will try to get Skype working by then, so I don't have to have my cell phone hanging off my ear. We'll see.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
So we're going to sign off the Hangout now.
Okay,
Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.